Welcome to Inside the Foundry. We're a podcast that has good conversations with good engineering and business minds. And we try to touch upon stuff that is not talked about in daily life, right? What actually drives pivots? What are pivotal moments that shape someone's outlook towards life or career? I'd like to start off by saying you've been at Microsoft for over 2 decades, right? At the moment you joined Microsoft, is this what you envisioned? Did you think you would end up in the vicinity of where you are today, or you had no idea?
Good question. I'm first going to start off by saying thank you for giving me the opportunity to join your Foundry series. I looked at a couple of other sessions that you have had with other speakers. So I feel like I'm in this distinguished list. So thank you for the time and opportunity. To answer your question, so I started at Microsoft back in 1999. I'm going to take the liberty of rewinding 2 more years to all the way to 1997 when I came to the US from India to do my master's in computer science at UT Arlington. And at that time, would I have imagined how the next 2 decades are going to look like? I'd say absolutely not. Especially as a fresh college grad, it's more like a happy-go-lucky kind of personality, right? So the goal was to come here, get some good education, and then see where life takes you. So I would say, first of all, the education system here in the US, I just have all kinds of amazing regards for it. Because I did engineering in India at my undergrad, and it was in a good college and a good university, but the system here really teaches you a lot more. So that was an amazing experience just to go through that before thinking about what comes next in terms of what is my future going to look like, or would I have imagined a certain path. I was all about soaking it in, enjoying that education system. And then right out of college, when I joined Microsoft, which was one of the two companies that I interviewed for the campus hire program, 100% did not imagine that I would be staying with this company for this long, and also the types of career opportunities that I would have had. Because I want to say I didn't have a plan. I was just like, I got education from a good university. Let me go and experience the professional life, make some money, of course, and have some fun along the way, but did not really have any sort of a vision to say, I want to do X. It all sort of happened along the way.
And the not having vision, I know you mentioned that you craved variety as well as structure. Yes, there is, out of college all of us love the paycheck. That's what drives first job decisions for a lot of people, provided they have an opportunity. But then how much of that craving for variety or the openness that comes with it, how much was that a factor versus being happy-go-lucky?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I think about having a structure, but then also having variety, it's a very tough balance. I don't think anybody can perfect it, or at least I haven't perfected that balance. It's always something that you aspire to do, or at least in my case, that balance is important for me. You can think of it as a balance between stability and change, right? In higher terms, all things in life, not just about career, just all things in life. And then the way I categorize that is in different aspects of what I do in life. So, for example, in certain aspects, I want stability, whereas in certain other aspects, I want that variety. I'll give you an example. The place I live, the friends and the community that I interact with and I build. My personality is I want some stability in those aspects. I'm not the person to constantly grow and build a new community along the way. I'd want some stability and some constant around that. But things like I want to go try some new hobbies, I want to go visit new places, new countries, or taking new roles and job opportunities, absolutely need variety in that. Otherwise, I get bored after a certain period in time. So I think that's how I distinguish the two. Even like when you talk about how I tried running and doing marathons because it seemed like to be the thing to do. I got super bored of it. Okay, I've done it. I've checked all the boxes, put my Facebook uploads and got the likes. What do I do next? So then I go pick up like a new hobby. As of now, it's pickleball. So it keeps changing. I think that is the variety I crave in terms of like more of the fun and exciting stuff in life to keep myself interested. The stability is the base I want in terms of like community I live in.
Very interesting. What do you think made you stay at Microsoft for 26 years? Because I've asked a similar question to people who worked at Oracle, because there's these few companies where people end up having long careers, and it's different things for different people. Sometimes it's external, sometimes it's opportunities from within the company. What was that for you about Microsoft? Why did you stay with Microsoft for 26 years?
The first thing is I would answer it by saying few companies, first of all, have stayed relevant for that long a period of time. So it's also
True.
the
True.
name or the type of company. I can actually name very few, like Microsoft. You mentioned Oracle, maybe to a certain extent, they may have stayed relevant for this long a period of time. So
Right.
that's one important factor because you couldn't have said 26 years back that you worked for Facebook because it didn't exist. Whereas Microsoft and Oracle, all of them existed. So that's like maybe one item that is byproduct of this. But I think what kept it interesting for me is even though I worked at Microsoft for this long, look, we are a 220,000 people company, which means there are
Right.
like, think of Microsoft as 15 different sub companies. And the way I have made sure that it's interesting for me is to
Mhm.
go and try various different opportunities within Microsoft, just because it had given me a chance to go try various things, all the way from going from completely one business function to another business function. So I think that's been the reason why, even though it seems like a long period of time, if I were to divide that up into like multiple sections of what I've done in Microsoft, it's almost like I work for like many different companies. And the other thing also, and Microsoft has, even though they've stayed relevant, they've gone through significant changes as a company itself, whether it's a culture change, leadership
Right.
change, strategic shifts that they've made that has almost made it interesting for me. So, for example, one of our previous bosses or CEOs, at that point of time, it made sense from a market standpoint, very Microsoft centric internal approach. Everything has to be like Microsoft first party or nothing else. So, when we were in sales, for example, we wouldn't be allowed to use an iPhone, or I shouldn't say we wouldn't be allowed to, but we would actually feel very proud of only using Microsoft products, and we were hardcore about it. I used to have a Windows phone, and when
Right.
people that have never looked at what a Windows phone is, and I don't blame them because it wasn't a very popular product, be like, "What is this thing?" And I'd be like very passionate about why that's the best thing to do, and I would not even touch an iPhone. To a new mindset with the current CEO. Everything is open source and friendly. Partnership is key. So we actually probably have engineers at Microsoft that have more Macs than even Windows Surface devices. So that's a very refreshing change. I'm saying all of this because that's sort of a cultural and a leadership and a strategy change. Also makes you feel like you've gone through various phases of the company that never felt like monotonous or constant. So all, if I think about like 26 years seems like a long time, but it's come with a lot of changes on its own that it felt pretty fresh all the time for me.
That's interesting because a lot of people crave that comfort when there's a big shift that happens in terms of vision or leadership or the general internal vibe of the company. And so a lot of people want to leave, right? Or they end up leaving because they complain about it for 6 months and then they leave. So it's interesting that you actually enjoyed that journey. Were you ever in Seattle?
I was never in Seattle. So that's another interesting thing. So 26 years, a long period of time. And
Right.
I've always been based in Dallas, Texas, of all places. Some people
Oh,
will be like, what, Microsoft has a location in Dallas? So it's like even very surprising to them. And the reason is because I've always been in what we call field roles versus corp roles. And
right.
so a lot of the corp roles are what, is usually based in Seattle. And even that, I mean, post COVID and with a little bit more of a flexible hybrid work culture, I don't think even that is true anymore. There's a big set of people that are in the Bay Area at Microsoft. There are other locations where we have spread outside of Seattle, but Seattle is still our mothership. That's where majority of things happen. But for me, luckily, or I don't know if luck is the right word, but I just have happened to stay in Dallas all the time.
Okay. Interesting. I asked because I used to live in Seattle for a bit, and then back then, this was late 2000s. There used to be a lot of people switching between Amazon and Microsoft all the time,
Yeah,
like a year and a half,
still
2 years
happens.
here, and then
Still
so
happens. But
I
both
was
the
like, man,
companies
this
located
is
right
super
there.
cool. And so you're in a special AI team, right? Or I think you said black belt.
That's right.
Yes. So considering that you're selling cutting edge, right? I'm sure your field ops, like you just mentioned, has a lot of application. when it comes to AI. Have you started using AI in any of your field ops? Seen any results? Has it helped anywhere?
Okay, just to make sure I understand, are you talking about with the customers I work with or internally or both?
Internally. Just in terms of customers, I'm not talking customer support, I'm saying customer success.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a big component, but more internally to
Yeah.
enable Microsoft itself.
Yeah.
Have you been using AI? Field ops perspective, what are some cool things you're seeing there?
Yeah, so we are a big believer in what we call eating our own dog food. That is the term that we use to make sure that we are actually embracing and using technologies before we go and preach to the customers saying why you should do it. So we've been a big believer for a long time, pre-AI, even in the, let's say, come up with a new CRM platform, which is Dynamics, while probably the most popular platform out there is like Salesforce or at that time Oracle. We would actually, before we go and tell our customers as to why they should switch from Salesforce and why a CRM system that Microsoft makes, which is Dynamics, is enterprise ready, we would actually use it first. We will have all our sellers use it so that we have good, first of all, credibility to go and tell this to our customers. So it's always been the case. So with AI, it's exactly the same thing. The very first thing that we've been doing is to make sure that it's adopted at Microsoft internally, and then it does two things, right? One, it actually helps our engineering because, like I said, we're a 220,000 people company. If we are giving signals, that's the best signal for them to get before we go and get customer signals, right? So this is a little bit more
Yes.
of a less stressful environment to act on signals versus a customer complaining that something is not working. So it's always
Right.
been the strategy. So for AI, obviously we have Copilots. That's our primary branding of ChatGPT
Yeah.
style applications
Yes.
for enterprises. And so we use that. So one of the first things we did was to make sure that the entire field organization at least is enabled with those ChatGPT licenses slash features in our
Mhm.
day to day so that we start using it. In fact, our leadership team shares the top prompts that they use every week on how they do work with our own products. For
Oh,
example,
wow.
I obviously have worked with a lot of customers as part of the sales organization. I have to prepare a lot of sales proposals. I have to do a lot of presentations. I have to think about strategies to help close the gap in terms of budget attainment. And so I use AI. I'll give you two good examples. One is I was on this 2 day offsite with my team. So we were in San Francisco and in the Bay Area actually, and we had about 5 or 6 of my leaders. We were all in a conference room for 2 days. And the output of that discussion was to create a strategy document, a white paper to think about how do we evolve our global black belt team model for the upcoming fiscal year. Because we heard a lot of what's not working, what's working, and how do we think about evolving this. So 2 days in a conference room, chatted, discussed a lot of ideas. We recorded the entire thing on Teams, right? So Teams was transcribing every single item that we were talking about. And then we used the Copilot that's built within Teams at the end of the second day to prompt it all kinds of different questions and ideas. And believe it or not, the white paper it generated on our behalf was 80% accurate or 80% what we actually wanted. So first of all, we didn't do any note taking. Everything was transcribed, right? So like we have teams
Right.
listening to us and transcribing, which is like a simple feature. But then on top of that, with everything it transcribed into this document repository, we could ask questions and say, hey, go do this, create this. Hey, can you create a section on what we should change for learning for our team? And it even would quote and put together. We have had whiteboards, it would take pictures and we would send it to it. So it's just an
Right.
amazing AI tool to give you one specific example. But that happens every day, whether it's our PowerPoint slide deck presentation, using researcher tools to research on a customer. So before I go to a customer meeting, I use this thing called Researcher, which is an OpenAI model that is now implemented within Copilot. So I would give it all kinds of prompts to say, hey, listen, I'm going to go for a meeting with customer X. It's a complete situation. Here are the internal documents that I've collected already. Can you tell me a little bit more, or can you put a nice talking track for me? And then the last thing I would say is a different example, but also something we do in the company. So I have to do performance management of my team, of the people that report to me. And then the performance management process is always very stressful, right? It's like
Yes.
I got to go and talk about myself. I got to say nice things about myself, but some people are very good at it, some people are not. And then as a manager, I have to give feedback to them. So Copilot, again, you can take all of the amazing information that people are providing me in my performance management tool that we have, But then I would use Copilot to say, listen, I'm looking for these 5 things. And here's a type of feedback that I want to give this person. So I give it my sentiment and what I've observed. But can you prepare this so that I can have? So it just what used to take me maybe 2 days to do something like that. So I would take 2 days to prepare a presentation or even a coaching approach to an employee that reports to me, reduced to 1 hour. So when I see that internally happening, I'm very confident now to go to customers and say, listen, this thing has so many applications for you. Employee productivity is the main thing that I'm talking about here, but there are other aspects of AI that to a long way to answer your question is absolutely yes. We do a lot of our AI tools and we put them to use and then we give feedback. A lot of times, while I told you all the good scenarios, there are things that it didn't work. There may be certain outputs it may have produced that made no sense to me. I'm like, that is not what I was asking you. So I'd give feedback or reprompt it and all that kind of stuff. So we learn along the way.
And this is the leadership sharing their top prompts for the week is a really cool idea because it democratizes brain architecture a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool. And you said, so this whole working with AI, is there a structure to it, or is there some kind of system you have into place saying guardrail saying, hey, this is how you should, this is what you should do if you want as an org from a process level? Do you have stuff like that, or is it's just oh everybody can go be creative, use it the way you'd like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the human input is the key in this, or the human involvement, because you don't want to just take everything that got generated, because there could be hallucinations, as we call it. So
Right.
I think we are empowered to answer your question to make your own decision. So there's no guardrail that says, hey, don't use this tool for X. It's actually the
Right.
other way around. They would even encourage, even in the performance management situation or the example I told you, it may sound like, should you be doing that? Should you not be really putting your complete human judgment into it? In
Right.
fact, we took it the other way around. When I go to my performance management tool, it'll actually have like prompt examples on the side to say, hey, listen, I know you're a manager, you're trying to coach your employees. These are prompts that have worked for other managers. You may want to
Ah.
consider using it. So it's actually encouraging and maybe giving some best practice examples, but there is no guardrails in terms of limiting usage of the tool. The guardrails are actually more in terms of how we think about doing all of this with a responsible AI principle in mind. So we get a lot of coaching on responsible AI and how AI has to be used for the right purposes. It has to be ethical. It cannot let you bias decisions. So those
Right.
factors are very important for us. We get a lot of training on it. So the guardrails are more around understanding how to use these tools safely versus restricting the tools just because it may have a negative effect.
And then you said when you go to customers and you tell them, hey, this is what it did with my performance review. I had to meet a prospect or a customer, and then I have this custom intelligence GPT or model or whatever, right? Not everyone's as tech forward. And when you meet people like those, it becomes an issue of switching cost because you can't sell the value because they're thinking switching cost. Is Comet trying to sell their browser and people are having a hard time switching because they're so used to Chrome and the Google ecosystem? You encountered that, and if you have, how do you deal with it?
I think I've encountered that in various different dimensions. So there are different ways to approach it. So there are some easier to do slash less disruptive options to implement some of these AI capabilities. And then there is all the way to like complete disruption where you're doing a lot of switching. So I think every customer's appetite may be different, right? So some customers are already in that journey and their AI maturity level is so strong that switching cost, while it is a big cost, they see the value. I think you're definitely asking about customers that may not have done all of that exercise because
Right.
to do that, it's not like a conversation with one team. It has to be top down. There's got to be an executive level push to have an AI led culture. And then it flows down to whatever teams that may not think of that switching cost anymore as tax, but more as an investment into something that they're going to gain in the future. But then there are obviously folks that are totally averse to it. And so in those situations, yeah, when you do give these examples, internal examples, they're useful. But I think more importantly, when I give those internal examples, I think it also comes down to what did it mean for us to switch, right? We also have a switching cost. It's not like just because we make the product, everything is free, because you have to redo the systems, you have to rewire, you got to do new learning for the employees. So even us as an organization have a switching cost. So we talk about how did we handle it? What is the ROI that we got back? And then, like I said, there are some very easier, less disruptive options. The build versus buy decision that customers may have to make. You don't have to build everything from scratch. You're already, let's say, a user of some of our products, which most customers are. And so if you're already using Teams, you're already using Outlook or something along those lines, then this is an additional element that you tie in to get that AI functionality. So that's the easiest SaaS buy option to somebody that's looking at, no, I want to transform my entire customer care organization, which is more involved. Obviously, there's a big switching cost. That takes longer for them to get convinced, and we have to really then go in and do the classic transformation journey and what is the pros and cons of it. So I think it depends on the customer type, but I think we have to meet where the customer is already at.
Makes sense. So, Sriram, you've been an engineer, consultant in sales, and then in sales leadership, right? Four different roles broadly. What is primitive from each of these different roles that you've taken away or that blew your mind? Let me put it that way.
Yeah, you're right. I've had in the beginning of my career, I was very technically focused in terms of being an engineer, to more field focus in terms of being in front of the customers as a consultant, to all the way to sales and sales leadership, which is more obviously a lot of strategy, but also at the same time, it's about pitching our solutions and value proposition to the customer. The one thing that has remained constant is that customer at the core of what I've done. So that has not changed. That's what drives me as well. That's why I've not taken a corp job and it's always been in the
Right.
field, is because I love being in front of the customers and talking to them. And so you take away different pieces in each of those functions. As a engineer, especially the initial roles that I was in, I was very appreciative of the types of challenges customers see in our product, because a lot of them are deployment challenges and issues, and you build that empathy with customers. Even though you want to, as Microsoft, go in and tell them that this is going to be fixed, you can see the whole journey that they have to go through to get to that point. So a lot of empathy and feeling for the customer in terms of how complex this is, what I took away from the whole engineering technical world. In the consultant world, it's more about how do we make sure that customers can, so appreciation for speed to market, I'd say, is maybe the one way to describe it. Because as consultants, we always go and want to sell a lot of architectures, but
Right.
connecting that to reality is a totally different thing. And I learned it eventually by then pulling my hat when I was an engineer to say, while all of this sounds great, what is a product truth, and how does everything that I'm talking about in a whiteboard map to product to truth? So it's again taking away how fast I can get them to do it. So the conversation about ROI, which is a very critical component of what customers look at, is what I would take away is, how do you think about ROI? It means different things to different people. For an engineering organization, may be very different from a business organization. So it's like understanding different business functions, that exposure of lines of business and how they connect to engineering, and how each stakeholder may have different key goals and KPIs they're driving towards. Big learning. And then in the sales and sales leadership role, it's a lot about handling stress. But not that the other roles were not stressful. It's especially in the times of AI, just making sure that we are on track, not just from a budget and number standpoint and managing around it, but even navigating the world of AI players.
Yeah.
Is somebody a partner? Are they a competitor? Are they
Yeah.
all of the above? How do we work with them? It's constant learning.
Wow. So you said you collect license plates from travels, right? What's your favorite license plate and why?
Yeah, so something that we've been doing as a family. Some people collect shot glasses, some people make it magnets, coffee
Amazing.
mugs. So we just collect license plates. These are not real license plates. You get it as a souvenir from the places I visit. So we usually collect it from only countries, not states within the US, because
Right.
there'll be too many otherwise. That's what we do as a souvenir. And then we have this board in the living room where we attach all of those to have a showcase of all the different countries that we have visited. Kenya was probably the most fun country visit that I've had, primarily because we had a whole safari experience, and then we went during the Great Migration time frame. So it's in Masai Mara in Kenya, where you have like hordes of these wildebeests and other animals migrating from Tanzania to Kenya, and it's a sight to watch like no other. So we always talk about going and visiting wonders of the world, right? Whether it's a Taj Mahal or an Eiffel Tower, but this is also considered a
Very
wonder of the
fun
world.
one.
And it's just breathtaking, the view that you get. And then anybody that's gone to a safari would never go back to a zoo. It's just because you see animals in the wild and in its own habitat. And really, we saw cheetah killing and stuff like that. So it was a mesmerizing trip. That's my favorite place, the one place that I definitely want to go back.
So this migration happens. So you're at one place, and then there's animals going over a week or 3 days or something like that, keep moving along as well.
Yeah, it's a period of time. I think it's around the end of July. So the monsoons, they follow where the weather patterns change and they automatically do the migration. It's interesting you ask the question because it's over a period of time, at least a few days. So as a tourist, it's very hard to also time it where you can actually watch it. So it's one of those things where you have to wait and hopefully be lucky to watch it. Because the way this happens is timing is one, which you can predict. It's in this 2 week time frame, and you're guaranteed that over those 2 weeks, several days you're going to see the migration happen. So maybe there may be a few days it does not happen. So that's your bad luck and you may have to come back. But even during the time, let's say it's going to happen that day, but you have to literally wait. So we're all waiting in these jeeps. And what happens is there is a river, right, that they're crossing to get to the other side. And they're watching for two things. One, it's interesting. It actually teaches you a lot of strategy as well. So these creatures are looking for a leader. So they're looking for somebody to start the process. So there are hordes of animals that have come from one side, and then all of a sudden they see this big dip, a valley, and a river in front of you. And so they don't want to take the next step because you're going to have to jump down and go climb up to the other side. So they're like, what the hell do I do? So what happens is you see this army of wildebeest and others that are coming and then just stuck in front of the river. And then they're waiting to see if we need to like continue and move to the other side. And then all it takes is like that one brave creature to say, I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to do it. And it's like an insane scene. When that starts running and coming down and climbing, thousands follow and do it. So you're waiting for that moment. So we literally have to wait. It was like hordes of them coming in. So we know the migration is going to happen, but they're not crossing. And then once the crossing happens, then you watch it. Now, there are dangers associated with it. It's not just getting down and going up. There are crocodiles waiting in the river that can catch these animals and eat them as they cross. So some of them may not survive and some of them may not make it to the other side. So they have obviously that sense as to why that is dangerous. And then once you have one animal bitten or whatever, then again there is like a hold because they are worried about what's going to happen. And the crocodiles are very sneaky, right? They won't be obvious. So it's just an exhilarating experience is all I would say.
Wow. That sounds so amazing. No one's ever explained it to me like that. And I don't think if I saw it, there's a lot of videos online and none of
Yeah.
those has expressed this side of it. Now I want to go.
Yeah, this for sure a fun thing to do.
So with AI being the it thing, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Where do you think tech careers are headed? And then I would say let's go back one level up. How is it going to change everything vocational on the STEM side? Both in terms of enabling, augmenting, as well as replacing. And then given that if someone's going to college today, last week I was talking to my cousin.
Yeah.
Actually, three of them are on a call. A couple of their kids are going to college next year, and they're like, "Hey, what advice would you give them?" I'm like, I have no advice to them. They just need to do. If they want to get in, they'll get in. It's as simple as that. I was joking. What would you say?
Yeah, no, you've touched a point that's close to home because my older one is a senior in high school, and literally this week he's been working on his college applications, and
Right.
he's got a deadline actually in a couple of days. So it's a very topic that we've discussed at home with my son as to, hey, what should I do from a career standpoint? What advice? Not that he's going to listen to me, but at least all he can do is just tell him my thinking around it. And then we obviously, there's a lot of discussion around it. So no doubt that AI is going to change the type of roles, type of opportunities, the type of careers that people are going to have in the very near future, right? So that is a given. So with that in mind, what are good careers or what should I do and how do I get prepared for this? It's obviously not a simple answer. It's multi-dimensional, multifaceted. I'd say a couple of things. One, you have to be ready to evolve and have this. Our CEO, Satya Nadella, calls it a learn it all mindset. So you have to keep reinventing yourself and keep learning. That's the only way to stay relevant. Otherwise, it sounds very obvious, but maybe in some other professions 20 years back, it may not have been obvious. So you're like in a government job or even a doctor. You're a doctor, you're very focused on your profession. You probably don't have to learn new things. Sorry, it's not going to happen. With AI, you're going to have to learn, even if you're a medical professional. So that's the primary way of looking at it is you have to evolve and constantly learn. Now, in terms of careers, we're going to start seeing a lot of hybrid careers. There's going to be the same medical example that I just gave you. There may be AI assisted diagnosis, which means it's a combination of having the skill set to be able to do diagnostics, but very versed in AI tools that help you do that effectively. So it's what I call this hybrid skill set. So everybody should have tech or AI as a secondary skill set on top of their core profession, because that's the hybrid roles that are going to be important. The second thing is it's going to open up new fields. So a big topic is ethical AI. So it's going to open up a bunch of opportunities to think about whether it's AI policy making, like the EU is doing, or just every organization is going to have a committee or an organization that's going to be thinking about safety, the principles, the security aspects of it. And that's not just learning AI. That's about you should have some legal background, societal ideas. So it's going to open up new opportunities. But a base STEM, you asked about STEM, the fundamentals don't change. So to go back to my son, and this is a decision he made on his own. I was happy he made it. He said, I'm just going to go. He's interested in doing engineering. I said, he's still going to go and do the fundamentals and learn the core engineering concepts like design thinking and all that. That's not going to go away. What I was trying to tell him not to do is maybe don't too much on application side. Don't go and learn some APIs and programming languages. Those are all going to be taken away by AI. You still want to have the design thinking. You want to have the core engineering fundamentals and principles. And then you just learn whatever based on the field or industry that you're going to be going into. You just have to learn the mechanics of how to apply that field to AI. So yeah, it's going to evolve the way we think about it. The core fundamentals are still super valuable, and it's going to have new opportunities. The biggest mindset to have is to be able to learn constantly and not just say, I'm going to do this, get a job, and I'm good to go. That's not going to happen.
By the way, who do you know who came up with the phrase? You said it earlier. We eat our own dog food. I'm curious to know.
It's a good question. I don't know if it's even a Microsoft term. We just use it so much at Microsoft that it almost feels like it's a Microsoft term. I may have to get back to you on that. There are different ways of saying that. It's kind of taste your own wine. There's different interpretations of how you think about it, but eat your own dog food is such in the 90s when I joined Microsoft. Hey, you got to eat our dog food first. That's like a very normal engineering thing to say, because when our products are launched, they want us to like test it out, try it out, and actually implement it before we do anything. I don't know who I should credit for that term. I don't know if it's like larger than just Microsoft.
No, I asked because it sounded like something Steve Ballmer would say.
You
Because
never know. I mean, it could
growing up,
be.
there weren't a lot of tech CEOs when I was growing up. There was Steve Ballmer. Steve Jobs just got back to Apple. There was mentions of Bezos and then a few PayPal people, but otherwise there was like no mention of any tech CEO. And then Hotmail's Sabir Bhatia, the Yahoo guys were there, I think. Steve Ballmer was a big presence.
While in the spirit of multitasking, I did ask Copilot who coined this phrase. Microsoft is the one that popularized it, but apparently the phrase originated in the 1970s for an advertisement for Alpo dog food, where a person that was in the ad stated he fed it to his own dogs. And it was popularized by Microsoft, specifically by Microsoft engineers Paul Meritz and Jim Harris. They contributed to its usage, emphasizing the importance of testing products with real users. And it's become a common idiom in business. So it was popularized by Microsoft, but it was originated by somebody that created this ad, and it's in popular culture now in business.
Close, right? You've said Microsoft has gone through, you've probably seen it go through two shifts, so that's three versions of it, if I'm not wrong. And it seems to me, as an outsider, and from the way you speak about the company, that the employees are fans of the company. It doesn't matter what changes, right? We go from a very walled focus to a very, there's no more walled garden. We're an open concept company. Still, everyone's enthusiastic. Like you said, right? Everyone would use the Microsoft phone and then talk about it very passionately. How do you think that was retained? And, or what do you think caused that retaining of that spirit?
Yeah, my sample size may be just the sales. And we are
Okay.
in sales, we are obviously very passionate and we pitch our solution. So maybe I don't know if this is a larger company sentiment. Maybe it is. I hope it is. But in our world, the joy that we've being part of the company and continue to feel proud about it, I think a lot of it has to do with leadership. I think it always starts with the culture. So when you have leaders that you can relate to and you can appreciate based on what they've done, it starts from there. And the second thing is Usually people talk about benefits, work-life balance as positive factors for a company like Microsoft, because I've heard not so good things about some of our competitors in that same area. So that may be a contributing factor. Now, there's always going to be people that have different experiences. I don't know if
Right.
it's true to say everybody feels that way. So
Right.
people that have stayed here for a longer period of time obviously have liked it, and that's the reason why they've stayed. So I think overall, the sentiment has been pretty positive. There have been rough times. We just went through rough times 4 months back where we had to do a lot of reduction in force.
Right.
I'm sure it is insensitive for me to say this when maybe employees and those that were affected may not be feeling that way. So you always have to keep that into account. But then if you have a capitalistic economy and there's 220,000 people, there are aggressive targets that everybody is looking at. So I think those things are par for the course and can happen to any of us. We just have to be ready. It's a combination of just leadership culture and work-life balance benefits and that pride in just one of the very few companies, the only tech company that in the last 26 years has stayed on top of the game. Everybody has probably fallen out or come in new. I don't think any other company, and that's the reason why I think it speaks for itself.
Really cool. All right. This was a great conversation as expected, Sriram. Thanks a lot. I know we touched upon a couple of areas we didn't plan to, but that was cool as well. I have a few cool takeaways, especially eat your own dog food and how it applies in various aspects in so many places. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
appreciate the time.
we
Thank
will
you.
let
I
you
had
know.